Intelligence has long been a symbol of prestige and success. It is considered almost as important as a bulging wallet. And although it is known that how far you can go in life does not depend solely on your intelligence quotient, the truth is that geniuses attract attention. Great inventors, philosophers, artists, and mathematicians make up a list of personalities who earn their rightful place in history through astonishing works, inventions, and discoveries. Among all of them, there is someone who is considered the most intelligent man who ever lived. And although no intelligence quotient test was administered to him at the time to verify it, his feats make it clear that according to official historical records, he was the most brilliant person to ever live. Given the things this individual was capable of during his lifetime, it is difficult for anyone to surpass him anytime soon. First, let's look at other great geniuses. Stephen Hawking is regarded as one of the most intelligent men on the planet. Despite having a high intelligence quotient, it is not among the highest in the world. Even so, he had a very respectable score of 160. It is estimated that Albert Einstein, the most popular physicist in history, had an intelligence quotient between 160 and 180. These gentlemen deserve mention because their images alone are symbols of genius. But let's talk about the people who currently hold the most prodigious intelligence quotients. There is the phenomenal Marilyn Vos Savant, a writer considered for a long time to be the most intelligent woman and person in existence. Some media outlets report that her intelligence quotient far exceeded 200, while others place it at 190. These discrepancies are likely the result of differences depending on the type of controlled test administered. One bizarre and hard-to-believe fact is that there is a man named Richard Rosner who has an intelligence quotient of 192, and until very recently worked as a stripper and a nightclub doorman. Beyond them are the mega geniuses, such as Dr. Kim Un-yong, a South Korean who began speaking at just 6 months of age. He speaks Japanese, German, and English fluently, loves poetry and mathematics, and has been invited by NASA many times to give lectures. His intelligence quotient is 210. At the age of 13, Christopher Hirata won a gold medal at the Physics Olympiad, defeating people much older than himself. By 22, he had earned a doctorate from the most prestigious university in the United States. Today, he works for NASA. His intelligence quotient, 225. Finally, the man with the most brilliant brain in the world today, Terence Tao. It is said that since the age of 5, he could solve extremely complex equations. He is regarded as the most intense mathematician of our time. He earned his doctorate at 20, and at 24, he worked as a professor at UCLA, one of the best universities in existence. 230 points. All of these people are one among tens of millions, heavyweights, mega geniuses. But with all due respect, and I know they would be the first to acknowledge it, next to the most intelligent human being who ever existed according to historical records, the men and women mentioned above pale in comparison. This person is not one, but many steps ahead of all of them, and it is believed that he was the most intelligent person who ever lived. An individual like this is born only once every many generations. I present to you William James Sidis. The feats of this man were such that some consider him a paranormal topic, but that is incorrect because this man truly existed and truly did the things you are about to hear. The clock starts in New York City, April 1st, 1898. Born to Boris and Sarah Sidis, brilliant refugees from Ukraine, William was the subject of an experiment before he could even crawl. His father, a Harvard psychologist, believed the brain could be forced. He gave William no toys, only blocks with letters. The results were immediate and terrifyingly fast. At 6 months old, an age when most infants are just learning to sit up, William spoke his first word, door. A month later, he pointed at the moon and said, moon. At 8 months old, he had reasoned out how to feed himself with a spoon, bypassing the clumsy motor development of normal infancy. At 18 months old, 1.5 years, while other children were babbling in cribs, William was sitting at the breakfast table reading the New York Times aloud to his parents. At 3 years old, he decided handwriting was too slow. He taught himself to type. He dragged a high chair over to his father's typewriter and composed a letter to Macy's department store to order his own toys. By 4 years old, he had moved past English. He read the Iliad and the Odyssey in the original Greek. He read Caesar's Gallic Wars in Latin as a birthday present to his father. By 5 years old, he had written a treatise on anatomy. At 5, he also developed a formula whereby he could mentally calculate the day of the week for any date in history, past or future, a computational feat he performed instantly. At 6 years old, William entered a public grammar school. He moved through the first grade in a day. He finished the third grade in 3 months. He finished the fourth grade in 1 week. He completed all 7 years of primary schooling in 6 months. At 6 years old, he was already fluent in English, Latin, Greek, Russian, French, German, Hebrew, Turkish, and Armenian. But learning languages wasn't enough. At 8 years old, he realized human languages were illogical, so he invented his own. He wrote a book called The Book of Vendergood. It contained a constructed language based on Latin and Greek, but with a grammar so complex it had 8 distinct moods. He also decided base 10 mathematics was inefficient, so he designed the language to function on a base 12 number system. At 8 years old, he passed the entrance exams for MIT. At 9 years old, he passed the Harvard Medical School anatomy exam. His father tried to enroll him in Harvard at age 9. The university said he was still a child and refused. So William spent his 10th year correcting errors in textbooks and searching for flaws in Einstein's theories of relativity. At 11 years old, Harvard finally relented. In 1909, William James Sidis became the youngest student in the history of the university. He wasn't there to learn, he was there to teach. On a freezing night in January 1910, at the age of 11, he stood before the Harvard Mathematical Club. The audience was filled with professors and advanced mathematicians. William delivered a lecture on 4-dimensional bodies. He stood there, a boy in velvet knickers, explaining how to map Euclidean geometry onto a 4th dimension. The professors were stunned. Physics professor Daniel Comstock stated to the press, "I predict that young Sidis will be a great astronomical mathematician. He will evolve new theories. He will be a leader in that science in the future." At 16 years old, he graduated from Harvard cum laude. Perhaps the single most terrifying display of his raw processing power occurred not in a lecture hall, but in a quiet library during his adult years. The story goes that one morning, Sidis walked into a library and requested a stack of books on the Portuguese language, grammar guides, dictionaries, and literature. He had never studied the language before. He sat at a table. He didn't move. He didn't take breaks. For the entire day, from opening until the sun began to set, he simply read, absorbing the syntactical structures and vocabulary with the speed of a machine scanning data. When the sun went down, he closed the books. The very next morning, he submitted himself to a formal examination to test his proficiency. The results were impossible. He achieved a perfect score. While his accent may not have been native, his comprehension and ability to write were flawless. In a single rotation of the earth, William James Sidis had effectively learned a full language, written and spoken, in one singular day. We often view intelligence as a gift, but for William, it became a curse. Socially, he was isolated. He had never played sports. He didn't understand the social rituals of his peers. The older students at Harvard teased him relentlessly. He once admitted to a group of them that he had never kissed a girl, a confession that led to ruthless public humiliation. He was a mind without a childhood. His parents had constructed a genius, but forgotten to raise a boy. On graduation day, surrounded by reporters expecting a statement on his brilliant future, William broke. He told them, "I want to live the perfect life. The only way to live the perfect life is to live it in seclusion. I have always hated crowds." At 37, writing under a pseudonym, he produced a 1,200-page manuscript on Native American history, arguing that the American founding fathers borrowed their concept of democracy from the Iroquois Federation. He even patented a perpetual calendar that accounted for leap years. By the age of 42, he had mastered 40 languages. He reverse-engineered the laws of thermodynamics. He traced the indigenous roots of liberty. He was a mind that could not stop working, even in the shadows. He didn't fail to deliver on his promise. We just failed to read what he wrote. On July 17, 1944, William James Sidis died of a cerebral hemorrhage in his small Boston apartment. He was 46 years old. In his wallet, they found a picture of Martha Foley, a woman he had loved unrequitedly for 25 years, the only human connection he seemingly craved. The world called him a failure because he didn't become a famous professor or a wealthy inventor. William James Sidis didn't fail. He possessed a mind that operated on a plane so different from ours that we mistook his solitude for defeat. He was the man who knew too much, too young, and who realized that the greatest achievement of all wasn't applause. It was the freedom to think in peace. Finally, experts around the world, most reputable societies such as Mensa, estimate that James William Sidis's intelligence quotient must have ranged between 250 and 300 points, making him by far the most intelligent man known to have ever existed.